all, it's Nim or Nimicry if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's MMORPG advocacy. So this article popped up on my timeline, and I was originally going to just, retweet it and, give my take and move on. But luckily, boop, Board Fan was like, hey, let's go over it. Let me hear a more in-depth take. And so I was like, okay, that's what we're going to do. So thanks, Board Fan, for the motivation to do this. And of course, if you like what I do, or you like the channel, go on and click subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything the channel does. Without further ado, let's get into it. In an article called The Rise and Fall of the Personal Quest, published in PC Gamer by Richard Cobbett on January 10th, 2015, so roughly 7 years ago, the hypothesis is how making everyone a hero arguably saved and ruined MMOs. Okay, well, I don't necessarily agree with that, but let's take a look at the argument Richard's going to make, and then I'll give my takes, my responses, and any counter-arguments from there. As always, you can check out Richard Cobbett's writing through his links, and of course, please don't direct any harassment. Alright. Now, what makes Personal Quest tricky to look back on is that they're simultaneously one of the best and worst things that ever happened to the genre. Without them, MMOs would be lesser experiences, and it's hard to imagine them being as successful. In their success, though, they offered a template so easily copied and safely implemented that they largely killed the point of the genre. It's as if, say, Quake had taught the world to crave flashy 3D graphics, but in doing so decided to remove the guns in favor of a debate system where you had to talk the monsters out of their evil, and rather than deathmatch, had come to define what modern shooters are. Call of Reason Advanced Diplomacy would be high on the charts. It would be madness. Now, two things I'm going to mention about this first paragraph. One, I like Richard Cobbett's writing style. That was a very visual paragraph, and I can imagine in my head, Call of Reason, Advanced Diplomacy. Or he missed the MMO joke, which is World of Statecraft. I actually would love a World of Statecraft. Please, somebody make World of Statecraft. I will play it. I will show it off on stream. I will do a video. I am excited to see if we can have an MMO based around diplomacy. I'd like that. You might already say, but Nim, that's Eve. And it's like, nah, Eve's a little bit more than that. But anyways. Now, we go on to World of Warcraft usually gets the credit and the blame for the rise of personal quests. And that's probably fair on both counts. It wasn't the first to go down that road by any stretch, but it was the first to largely map out your progress through the entire world in an ordered way that jumped from NPC to NPC to NPC, and rarely, at least until the later zones, leave you just killing monsters to level up in any way like earlier games, such as EverQuest and Meridian 59 had often done. Pre-WoW MMOs did have quests and narrative content, but not anything like the same degree. Asheron's Call, too, was the first to really plant its flag in that terrain in 2002, along with the Dark Age of Camelot at around the same time. The smash success of World of Warcraft, though, established its method as one the most future games would follow, with precious few daring to simply drop players into a world. That paragraph was a little unwieldy for me to read, and it didn't flow quite as well as the first paragraph, but that aside, let's talk about some things. Why do games refuse to simply drop players into the world? Well, it's because of a couple of reasons. First, there is an attachment to your character. You built it. It's not just, troop with gun like in an FPS, the eponymous Quake, which was mentioned earlier. Second, the progression system takes a long time. Ideally, you're going to be playing MMOs for years, or in my case, decades. My very first MMO, of course, was Anarchy Online. For those who know, I went back and played Ultima Online. I've played Eve. I've played a bunch of browser MMOs. WildStar, Aeon, Rift. Of course, I spent the most time with World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. And then before Endwalker came out, I was alternating between World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV. I would go back and forth. And having just beat the main story quest of Endwalker, I can safely say that Endwalker was the best example of the genre I've ever seen in all the time that I've played. Please, play Endwalker if you can. But the reason you don't want to drop players in the world, in addition to it taking time and investment, is there's something that's called the onboarding process. Now, I got that term as related to video games from a YouTuber by the name of Harris Bomber Guy. So Harris, see his video, big fan. Anyways, so if you just drop me into the world and you're like, okay, there's this huge world, go explore, That works for a Dark Souls game. That works for an FPS. But here I'm supposed to have some type of narrative. I'm supposed to have some type of goal. Now you might say, Nim, but without a personal hero narrative, you can just do whatever you want. Oh, okay, so it's a sandbox and you want me to create my own fun. Well, that's interesting. I should show a picture of Fallout 76 on screen. In fact, boop. You might ask, Nim, why did you show a picture of Fallout 76? Well, Fallout 76 is generally considered an MMO in the loosest possible sense. Players create their own fun, and the plot is often lambasted as weak and ineffectual. At least the people I've talked to. Haven't found people who are like, oh my god, let's get into Fallout 76. As opposed to New Vegas, which is a very tightly controlled RPG, has a personal hero narrative, and continues along the thread of fate or prophecy or whatever the player has to play down, and you have a very rich experience. Same thing here. If you're just dropped into a world, nothing you do matters. But if there's a path laid out, you can decide, okay, well, I can go do the side quests, or I can continue the story, and ultimately it leads to a much richer and fulfilling narrative. Now, this author may say, oh, but it holds your hand. Oh, it limits what you have to do. Here's the thing. There's only so much you can do in a system anyways. You might as well follow the narrative and have a rich experience while you're doing it. For example, when I was playing Endwalker, I got to experience an amazing story. If they had just said, okay, well, you get to level in, 6 new zones, go, I wouldn't have been near as moved as having that story. Now, what about the opposite side? Let's say there's a real terrible story. Okay, then maybe just we treat it like Fallout 3, we just ignore the main quest and just go around and have fun in our new playgrounds. The advantage of personal quests is threefold. First, the player always has something to do. I think that's good. Second, the pacing and difficulty is kept under the designer's control. The problem is the third, that progress is almost never stymied if there aren't other players around. This, more than anything, is why they became such a crutch. If the game relies on, say, armies clashing, but there aren't enough people online up for doing that, the game dies. If progress is reliant on players teaming up, but they either won't or can't, the game dies. If your plan was to have a deep political system, the players just act like barbarians, the game dies. These aren't casual fears either. Ultima Online, for instance, was set in a world devoted to the 8 virtues and marketed as an audience well-trained to be heroes, only to turn into a Darwinian charnel house. A fun phrase, by the way. A Tale in the Desert, a very clever game that's still running, charged players with creating a perfect Egypt, only for them to immediately strip mine it. Okay, so that's an interesting thought that they put there. So the first player always has something to do. That's a good idea. Second, the pacing and difficulty is kept under the designer's control. Again, not a bad thing. And third, the progress is almost never stymied if there aren't other players around. Now, that's an interesting thought. Most modern MMOs, even back as far as 2015, had a queuing system. In fact, back then you could, I know in World of Warcraft, I actually leveled entire characters not leaving Stormwind. I would just go in and do dungeons and dungeons and dungeons and dungeons and dungeons. And while that gameplay may be a little not as intended, you didn't really do many quests, I still got to play with other players. I was never stymied. This author, Mr. Corbett, does not understand queuing system. Now, maybe Mr. Corbett intentionally left that out because he finds the queuing systems to be not helpful or antithetical to the genre, because the MMORPG is about community and building connections and having a reputation on the server, and that's wonderful in old school style games. But here's the thing. In 2015, there's a lot of competition. There's even more competition than there was back in 2002 or 2005 or 2010. So keep that in mind there. And as for the example of the Ultima Online turning into a Darwinian charnel house or a Tale in the Desert, create a perfect Egypt, this is what happens when you don't guide players. They'll play to whatever they want to do. And sometimes they'll work as each other's NPCs, as we can see sometimes in, again, Fallout 76, or they'll go off the rails, as in referenced Ultima Online or A Tale in the Desert. Now, personal quests were insurance. No matter what else happened in the world, there would be that strong through line. NPCs, monsters, specific objectives, there would always be someone in need of 20 bear rear ends and 20 bears with rear ends to spare. And so, over the years, the genre calcified around basic pillars, a personal quest that would take you through the game, dungeons and raiding where group content would be played, PvP stuff somewhere around the edge, and maybe a couple of more bits. The technology likewise improved, with World of Warcraft typically leading the pack in terms of cutscenes and phasing and scripted encounters that increasingly copied single-player RPGs. In the last couple of years, Warlords of Draenor and Final Fantasy XIV have done a particularly good job of making this cool. Now, I agree with that last sentence. Some of the cutscenes were cool, and I'm going to say something here that you guys might be like, oh, Nim, how can you say this? And the answer is, I enjoyed the Hellfire Assault fight in Hellfire Citadel. I enjoyed it a great deal. I thought the idea of breaking cannons and mecha to get ammo to batter down the door was cool. It was definitely slow-paced, especially after you got the gear, and a group that could just be like, all right, go, 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 and they run the ammo. It was definitely slow-paced, but it was a fun idea in concept. If you could have, like, rung a bell and brought out multiple waves at the same time, that would have been really cool. You could have really pumped some cool numbers. It'd been fun. But I like that. Now, let's talk about this. The technology likewise, technology likewise improved, with World of Warcraft typically leading the pack in terms of cutscenes and phasing and scripted encounters that increasingly copied single-player RPGs. In that same paragraph, it mentions dungeons and raiding where group content can be played. Okay, so here's the thing. Just because I'm an individual playing my game does not make it a single-player game. Anyone who has done higher-end raiding, and I say, we're talking about Mythic, we're talking about Savage, we're talking about Extreme, we're talking about Ultimate, we're talking about, cutting-edge stuff, and even lower than that, especially early in expansion and not having a lot of gear, you have to play with other players. And really good players, sometimes I even fall in this category, can actually cover for other players' weaknesses. I'll give an example from World of Warcraft, one of my favorite things. I played a Paladin. Love being a Paladin. I'm a big fan of the Paladin. People may know. I could, at the press of a button, it was my 11 key, so I guess it was my little minus key there. I could turn invincible for 8 seconds. Now, what does that mean? That means I take no damage, took nothing, no debuffs, no nothing, and except in very niche encounters. There would be a mechanic, usually where, I have to soak. We have to soak these circles. Well, okay, I'll pop a bubble. What if they overlap? I can stand in the overlap, pop the bubble, boop, and soak both of them. Now, what does that do? That lets the other player who was going to soak carry on with their job without even having to worry about it. They don't even have to be healed or debuffed or removed or cleansed or even worry about anything. It's just me. Oh, hey, I got both of those. And sometimes, if we're lucky, you could get 3 in a close proximity and stand and soak 3 and really, really, really just help out with the DPS or HPS requirements. And that is not a single-player RPG mechanic, because I literally have to engage with my party in order to play that effectively. I'll also call it the Bloodlust problem. Or, let's use a Final Fantasy XIV example, let's say Passage of Arms. So Passage of Arms, as a paladin, I put up my shield, and I got these big wings behind me, and you take 15% less damage while you're standing in my wings, and it works with other cooldowns and other stuff like that. I can pop Passage of Arms, but if you're not cognizant of me doing that and understand what that means as another player, it does nothing. It just increases my block chance to 100%, which is great. Block doesn't even negate all damage, it just negates a certain percentage. So I want to mention that's not like single player encounters. It might be considered single player RPG encounters in the sense that it's scripted, that I know that after 3 meteors in the fight, the big boss brings a hammer, and then the cycle starts over. Yeah, that could be similar to a single-player RPG, but how each individual group reacts to it and adapts to it and handles it is going to be, at least on the margins, different depending on the makeup. Now, the problem is that in focusing on single-player experience like this, the multiplayer side is typically wasted. I think we just disposed of that, and I didn't even touch PvP, because I normally don't touch PvP. If you're a really good PvPer, I respect you, do you, but it's not me. It is often impossible to play with friends if you want to, since your version of the world is different, you're completely locked into your level boundary, you can't share quests based on each person being at different stages or already having completed them, and even if you do team up, every NPC addresses you personally. Now you're being an antisocial jerk like I am. I'm not too saddened by being treated like a hero, and I can blank out the fact that I'm not really the commander of the Horde any more than I am Earth's first Spectre or a mighty Archmage. Still, it's hard not to feel sad that more ideas haven't been tried. Okay, so I can see where this person's coming from, especially if they played a lot of World of Warcraft. Back then, there was a lot of phasing issues, and especially now, you couldn't go on. You either had to tag along and not get credit outside of some loot or anything like that. So I can understand that being a problem. However, nowadays, that's not a problem. I can go in. As soon as I can log into Endwalker, I can go in and I can do a quest from, it starts at level 80 and it scales all the way up to 90. I can just do that, and I can do that on any job. Same thing with, I can sync down to other instances in World of Warcraft. I can mentor, I can do a whole bunch of other things, and I can play together with people of varying skill levels and levels. Now, luckily, as MMOs go, they have a natural terminus, a natural endpoint. It's the max level. From there, everything is accessible. You can go back and do things, and you can play with your friends. So that's something there. I don't necessarily, that might be more of a 2015 problem than a 2021 problem. And I'm not going to fault the person for being like, aha, 6 years later, almost 7 years later, the problem was solved. How dare you not take that into account, good sir? We're not going to lambast him for that, but that is a problem. That was a problem in the past, a legitimate problem, because I remember seeing that little green eyeball, the dragon eye, being like, oh, you're phased. We're in different phases. And having to figure that out, that was annoying. It's the picture that says, who needs friends when you have minions? Exactly. Well, I mean, anybody who's been a raid leader has minions. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. I agree with that. Quite often they have, but it's not just developers who will typically follow the path of least resistance in the name of success and keeping their jobs. Especially because tend to be a lot of layoffs in the game industry. Wish they'd unionize. That'd be pretty dope. In fact, you should probably support a better ABK, a better Ubisoft, and a better Raven. You can follow those hashtags on Twitter. I recommend doing that. Personal quests have taught players very bad habits, like eschewing most challenge in favor of just leveling up a bit and powering past it, and expecting an entire world to be presented to them on a carefully leveled out plate. Something I loved in the original World of Warcraft, for instance, was early on you had things to do. You had things like the level 10 to 20 Darkwood area right next to super dangerous Fellwood for level 40 and 50 players. It felt more realistic that way, a brooding evil place right on the edge of safety, but now you never see that anymore because people complain about being killed or being asked to travel through dangerous territory to get back to safety. Where originally the process was about blips of experience and levels, it's now much quests completed. Anything that slows the process down is deemed a problem, not a challenge. Other players aren't potential comrades, they're assholes who steal your kills and call you a noob for screwing up. Okay. So, I don't necessarily agree with that either. So, if I remember, Fellwood was in Kalimdor. And the Darkwood area, I can't believe I'm blanking on the name, is in the Eastern Kingdom. They're not even close to each other. There's a whole ocean in between. And depending on the expansion that you're in, there's like a maelstrom, a hole in the world, some couple of island bits. They're not close to each other. That's not something I would say, but that's maybe I'm splitting hairs again. That's one of those things. It says blips of experience and levels. Well, here's the thing. No one really cares about the amount of quests completed. They care about getting the experience from the quest. So, in fact, I can tell you from personal experience that, yeah, I'll read the quest text. Oh, okay, cool. I gotta go get the legendary sword shards to get the thing. Okay, great. And then if I have to do it on an alt, I need X widgets. Cool, I'm gonna go get X widgets. Map shows me where X widgets are. I'm gonna go get X widgets. Cool, I killed 7 things, got 7 widgets, came back. Yes, enough experience to level up, and we're moving. Now, it says anything that slows down that process is deemed a problem, not a challenge. So, I'm going to pose a hypothesis to you. Is it hard to move 1 grain of sand at a time with tweezers? The answer is no. No, it's not. Provided you have the manual dexterity and hands and things. and sand. If you don't have sand or that, you can't. But let's say you have all the tools to do the job. It's not hard. It's tedious. And tedium kills a game. Players play the game for various reasons, but in general, progress is what's wanted. Now, how do you measure progress? My lead mod of the channel, Evie, would measure progress by collectibles attained. And ideally, collectibles attained per minute. That way, she can have all of the mounts and then fly around me and be like, aha, Nim, I've got the mounts. I've got the mounts. And I can look and be sad and all that such. Other players may, like myself, may be like, oh, I want to get the maximum amount of power out of my character. So if I'm going in tanking, I want to be the best tank I can be. Well, how do I do that? Well, I got to do that first. I got to be max level. Then I got to be good geared. Then I have to do the hardest thing of all and actually play correctly. So that's the different thing. So it's not a problem. It's a challenge. It's just the challenge is different than what Mr. Corbett assumes the challenge was. The old challenge was we have to find things to do. And some people like games like that. The new challenge is there's the content. Now get through it. And if you want to do something harder, there's harder things to do. Now it says here, easily the most tragic victim of this approach has to be the Elder Scrolls Online from last year. You know that the Cult of Personality quest has reached critical when Even Fest, a series predicated on the freedom and exploration. It's the world being sliced up into leveled zones and being led by the nose with just a little wandering on the side to remind you of what could have been. But yes, there are other games too. DC Universe Online springs to mind, where yes, there's a PvP server mode, but a game that could have been built around fun ways heroes and villains clash and compete just ended up with them casually following their own red string paths around the world and listening to pre-recorded mission logs. The Secret World 2, as discussed here a couple of weeks ago. Really, that's going to be the focus. Make a single-player game. Now, again, I want to mention this was written back in 2015. The Elder Scrolls Online right now, you can level in any zone. You can level in any zone, any level. When I picked it up for a little while, I went to Morrowind. Morrowind being my favorite zone. I absolutely adore Morrowind. I loved the game. It was my favorite Elder Scrolls. I loved being the Nerevarine, and I subjugated that entire continent. I mean, I took over House Halu, so I could take over the Kimona Tong later, and I just did everything I could. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. As for DC Universe Online, I haven't heard of DC Universe Online in quite a long time, so again, dating the article. As it's talking about playing red strings, right? You can have a game that has both single player and multiplayer, and they come with different challenges. It's not necessary. Is it going to be the focus? Well, the question is leveling content? Yes. Yes, it is. But leveling should and will naturally end. So if the max level is 99, eventually, through doing content, you will hit the end of leveling. It's not an infinite leveling system. Now, games like Rift created a Paragon system where after you hit the max level naturally, you still fill up the bar and then you get a little bonus stats and attributes and it just makes your character more powerful or adds conveniences. And I'm a big fan of a Paragon leveling system like that. Just because as long as there's not mandatory power things behind it and it's just, oh, okay, you keep playing, great, now you get a faster teleport. You can teleport every, 5 minutes faster. While it's a great quality of life thing, it doesn't actually break the game. I like this phrase. Meanwhile, back in conversation, Cawthon contemplates Hegelian dialectic. See, I like that. It's funny. It's no wonder that over the past couple of years, especially, the pendulum has swung away from MMOs in favor of two genres in particular. The MOBA, please address all complaints about me using the word MOBA to someone who cares, that allows the fantasy trappings and team dynamic with far more depth and sandbox games. Be they friendly like Minecraft or brutal like Rust, their focus on building, on community, on being part of something bigger was the original promise of the MMO genre, with its start coming from a combination of that and the magic of being able to share a world with so many people. Now, more or less, any tiny company can create an MMO if they want to. And the generation they appeal to isn't impressed by such magic as online play. MMOs have been left in the dirt, and it's a big reason that they stuck with what had worked long after becoming self-defeating. A few like Guild Wars 2 have tried pulling things back in the other direction, though only with limited successes and a little copying so far. Age of Conan had one of the strangest approaches, with a highly polished starter quest that dumped players in a far more basic world with no idea what to do next. To which most dedicated that the correct answer was uninstall this. Only Eve has really nailed the MMORPG sandbox, and even then its commercial success isn't universe shattering. Alright, so Again, this was written back in 2015. I want to make sure that's very clear. There was a shift from the MMO to the MOBA. We saw the rise, of course, of League of Legends and Hearthstone and other MMOs. I think Smite's one of them. I don't normally play a lot of MOBAs, to be honest. And it says that any indie company can create an MMO. I'm curious, for those who have a little bit of history, who might have played some MMOs, what happened to the small ones? Don't know. They're gone. They didn't make any money. They failed. That's what happens when you just create an MMO. It's just what happens. Doesn't work. Doesn't do anything. Isn't successful. So you can't, not anybody can do it, but if you just do it, if you just go through the motions, it's not successful, it's not profitable. Now, Guild Wars 2 was not bad. There was some world content, and you got to explore the world and do things. It was enjoyable. I've played Guild Wars 2 for a little while. I was a Condi engineer, so I got to have some fun with that. It was cool dumping turrets and bombs and things. I enjoyed that. I had not played Age of Conan, and Eve I played while I was in the military, and I enjoyed it because I could set skill trainings. They would act in real-world times and then be done. So I genuinely enjoyed Eve Online for that. Eve is a little spreadsheety for a lot of people, and even with its shift now away from some of the spreadsheetness, it's still a very, very niche game in a niche market. Fun, and if you like spaceships and piracy and maps and potential corporate takeovers, I highly recommend Eve. But does that at all matter? After all, I just said in that paragraph that these other games exist. Well, yes, to an extent. See, I like a lot of the trappings that go with MMOs. I like crafted worlds. I like the characters. I like the sense of story. I don't get that from most freeform games. And I don't really care for the brutality of a lot of them. Sometimes I want to be a super wizard unleashing the fury of the elements on all who displease me. I want to get invested in a bigger story. I want to feel part of a side, even if that competition is tongue-in-cheek and completely baseless. For the Horde and all that. That's something, for now, you still need MMOs for. It just saddens me that it took a whole other genre to realize that potential. And now, it's really only EverQuest next that seems to be flying that flag. Shroud of Avatar 2, perhaps, though it's too early to tell how that's going to be. Now, the thing about a crafted world is that an MMO is a crafted world. You can be invested and have a single-player campaign and a multiplayer aspect. I'm going to be honest with you. Having raided with a bunch of people, there are very few things more celebratory than being like, progression kill! I love being on a progression kill. It's my favorite thing in MMORPGs to do, is to be on a progression kill, and it's like, yes, we got it, we did it. It's the first time the guild, or the free company, or the corp, or whatever, did it. I love progression kills. So I definitely think that's something there. And to talk about the brutality of freeform games, often free-for-all games come with a free-for-all mindset. Now, free-for-all can be great if it's cooperative. But if it's not cooperative, the player who plays more in the beginning and can somehow eke out that little advantage and keep it going, it will actually increase in magnitude over time to the point where you may meet a new player in a free-for-all game and you've been playing for an extra week. You can literally lay that player down, bap, and that player can't do anything against you unless there are buffs or some system to stop that. And even then, they're still a week down, and if you keep that up, the gulf gets wider and wider and wider and wider and wider and wider, unless that player has the ability to catch up. So that's why the brutality of free-for-all and free-form games generally don't work. There was a video done by Josh Strife Hayes called Why Hardcore PvP MMOs Fail. I recommend that video now, and I'm essentially summarizing some of the points that I would make if I were making that video, which is that you run into the griefing problem, because some players derive enjoyment from overcoming challenges. One of the reasons why I like to do raids. I like to get my team, be like, hey, everybody, come here. All right, that's going down. Let's go, get loot, be awesome, crack open a beer. Some players are like, you know what? I'm enjoying myself. What if I can frustrate this other person? And they derive enjoyment from that. Who's playing the game wrong? Well, the answer is nobody. Nobody's playing the game wrong. Everybody has different ways to play. But one way is impacting another player's time. And because of that frustration, they may have to stop. And that's why the player who is doing the ganking or the griefing or the player killing or whatever you want to call it is deriving enjoyment from stopping the other player having fun. Because you can't complete a quest if you're dead. Unless the quest is to die, in which case, that's a weird quest. Very bravo, though, on being creative. I can't complain too much, of course. I'm as guilty as any of just following the personal stories and ignoring everything around, and without them, I doubt I have spent long in many MMOs I've played. Still, when I fire up a new MMO and immediately thrown into a linear sequence of being told how to hit things with an axe so the guy down the road can tell me what to do next, it's wasted potential that hits home. Story is great, but like everything, it's a tool. Used wrong, it can destroy experience just as much as a great one, especially when forced. Now, I do want to mention this. This was written in 2015. Back then, in the most popular MMO in the genre, World of Warcraft at the time, there were achievements called Lore Master. You got those for completing the number of quests in the zone. So you could actually track your achievements and get that. There was a way, it encouraged you to go out and do other quests. In addition to the experience and gold rewards, and increased gold rewards at level cap, you could go out and do that. That was a thing you could do. So it's not as if you're being fed into a story. In fact, each zone had a story. And there were ancillary quests outside. You could stay and do that, and that's fine. But it would always work to your advantage to do all of the quests. So I'm going to say that, Mr. Corbett, that is a personal choice that you're making. And again, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just think that you're kind of missing the point. Like, if the target is right in front of me, you're kind of off here. You know, you'd like your eyes left the sights. So that's fine there. We're going to wrap up the video now. All right, so that was the rise and fall of Personal Quest. I added my commentary, but overall I thought it was a fairly decent article with some points that kind of like, well, I made half a point and then walked it all back, and half a point and walked it all back. So, honestly, it's for PC Gamer. Not a bad article. And in fact, I liked Richard Cobbett's style of writing for the most part. If you like what I do, or you like the channel in specific, go on and hit subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with everything the channel does. In addition, I've been told to push this. I stream on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's at twitch.tv/Nimicry. Friday and Sunday, we do Final Fantasy XIV, and Saturday is a wildcard stream. I open up the Discord, we talk, we chat, we have fun, we play something other than Final Fantasy XIV, but me, I'm primarily an MMORPG creator, so that's where I focus the most. And again, check that out at twitch.tv/Nimicry. If you'd like to send me a quick comment, you can do so in my Discord. There's a link below. Or you can follow me on Twitter at Nimicry. I do my best to respond to everything, but keep in mind, even I can't get everything. So if I miss something, it's not personal. I will get to you. If you want to go above and beyond the Call of Duty for support, you can, of course, subscribe on Patreon. And that's patreon.com/Nimicry. Patrons get videos a couple of days early, in addition to a host of other perks. And again, you can subscribe at patreon.com/Nimicry. I had a lot of fun making this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It's not often I get to be the MMORPG advocate and really delve into something when someone's writing about my favorite genre. So I hope you enjoyed it again, and I will see you in the next video. May the mount you're farming drop on the first kill.